Yeah, so all right, hi everybody. Welcome to the Keeping It Real Bible study. I'm glad that everybody could join me today. Um, so we're gonna before we start, we're gonna do like we always do. We're gonna start out with our prayer. Is everybody ready?
This morning?
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So I'm gonna say it and please repeat after me. Lord, open our eyes
Lord,
Lord,
open our
eyes
so we can see something we've never seen before.
so
so
we can see something we've never seen before.
Open our ears
Open our
ears
so we can hear something we've never heard before.
so we
we
can hear
can
something we've never heard before.
And open our hearts
and open our
Open our heart
so we can receive something we've never received before.
so we can receive something we've never received before.
Amen.
Amen.
All right. I hope everybody has their Bibles. Everybody ready? We're going to be in Genesis 11. I don't have on my new glasses, so I'm gonna have to do my old way to take them off and put them back, read it and whatever. Okay, so the whole earth had the same language and vocabulary. As people migrated from the east, they found a valley in the land of Shinar and settled there. They said to each other, "Come, let's make oven-fired bricks." They used brick for stone and asphalt for mortar. And they said, "Come, let's build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the sky. Let's make a name for ourselves. Otherwise, we will be scattered throughout the earth." Then the Lord came down to look over the city and the tower that the humans were building. The Lord said, if they had begun to do this as one people, all having the same language, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. Come, let's go down there and confuse their language so that they will not understand one another's speech. So from there, the Lord scattered them throughout the earth and they stopped building the city. Therefore, it is called Babylon. For there the Lord confused the language of the earth, and from there the Lord scattered them throughout the earth. These are the family records of Shem. Shem lived 100 years and fathered Arphaxad 2 years after the flood. After he fathered Arphaxad, Shem lived 500 years and fathered other sons and daughters. Arphaxad lived 35 years and fathered Shelah. After he fathered Shelah, Arphaxad lived 403 years and fathered other sons and daughters. Shelah lived 30 years and fathered Eber. After he fathered Eber, Shelah lived 403 years and fathered other sons and daughters. Eber lived 34 years and fathered Peleg. After he fathered Peleg, Eber lived 430 years and fathered other sons and daughters. Peleg lived 30 years and fathered Reu. After he fathered Reu, Peleg lived 209 years and fathered other sons and daughters. Reu lived 32 years and fathered Serug. After he fathered Serug, Reu lived 207 years and fathered other sons and daughters. Serug lived 30 years and fathered Nahor. After he fathered Nahor, Serug lived 200 years and fathered other sons and daughters. Nahor lived 29 years and fathered Terah. After he fathered Terah, Nahor lived 119 years and fathered other sons and daughters. Terah lived 70 years and fathered Abram, Nahor, and Haran. These are the family records of Terah. Terah fathered Abram, Nahor, and Haran fathered Lot. Haran died in his native land in Ur of the Chaldeans during his father Terah's lifetime. Abram and Nahor took wives. Abram's wife was named Sarai, and Nahor's wife was named Micah. She was the daughter of Haran, the father of both Micah and Isha. Sarai was unable to conceive. She did not have a child. That's important. Terah took his son Abram, his grandson Lot, which is Haran's son, and his daughter-in-law Sarai, his son Abram's wife, and they set out together from Ur of the Chaldeans to go to the land of Canaan. But when they came to Haran, they settled there. Terah lived 205 years and died in Haran. Okay, so if I wanted to give this lesson a title. I titled it, It Didn't Go According to Plan. So it didn't go according to plan. So if you remember back in verse number 6, the Lord said, if they had begun to do this as one people, all having the same language, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. So when we were reading the lineage of the people, did you find anything different from this lineage of these people than in the previous lineages that we read about in the previous chapters?
He didn't end it with then they died.
They didn't end it with then they died. And anything else?
They were having kids younger.
They were having kids
and living
yes.
less, right?
They were having kids younger and they were living less. Yes, absolutely. Those are the things that I picked up on too. Is there anything else that anybody else picked up on? Okay, that was basically it. Okay, so I wanted somebody to define what a plan is for me. If you had to define the word plan, what is it?
Making preparations.
Making preparations. Anybody else? Okay, so I found a special definition of the word plan. So I don't know if you guys want to write it down, so I'll read it slow. A plan is a document showing a detailed scheme, program, and strategy worked out in advance for achieving an objective. Anybody want me to reread it? Or you guys got it? Okay. So have you ever had a plan in place and then realized nothing is going like you planned it or thought it would? If so, can you give me an example?
Having children.
Having children, okay. Being a wife, getting married, graduating from school, getting a job. Any other examples? Okay. When I think about one particular plan in my life that I look back and laugh about, I think about when I first picked my major in college. I just knew I was going to be a nurse. I could just see it. I went to school, took all my prerequisites, and when I got to anatomy and physiology, I kept failing the test. I would study, and I swore I would know it, but at test time, I could never come up with the right answers. One day, my English professor said, "You should be a writer." And I laughed at him and said, "Absolutely not. I want to be a nurse." I was excelling in English, telling stories and writing papers. It all came natural to me, but I wanted to be a nurse. Finally, after taking that class 4 times and transferring to another school, because of course it had to be the school, it couldn't be me, I finally switched my major to English. And my professor said, "You are one of the best students I have this semester." I had to laugh and say, if I would have stopped being stubborn and listened a long time ago, I could be further along than what I am. Same as the text. Can anybody else relate to wanting things to go one way and then realizing they wanted to do it their own way and found themselves in a stuck hole, instead of saying, I could have graduated college years ago, but I wanted to be stubborn because I wanted to be a nurse, but that wasn't really what God had for me. Anybody else got any examples?
Relationships. Staying in a relationship.
Yep, staying in a relationship, absolutely. Anybody else? Shantanice, I see you came off mute. You have an example?
Yeah, relationships was a good one, but what you was saying was very relatable about like keep trying, because you're so adamant this is for me, but it's really not.
Yeah.
So that was very relatable. Like I definitely would say for me it was school as well, because I was never big on math and I kept wanting to do things that included math, and I'm like, whatever. So now I'm back to school. So
years later, and finally finding your niche.
Yes. And I think another one is with kids. Like my biggest thing is we always have these expectations of our kids.
Absolutely.
They want to be this way because we teach them these things and try to give them the right type of guidance, and they still do what they want to do. So that would be my biggest thing, is the kids having their own journeys, and we're like disappointed because it didn't go as according to plan that we
According
thought.
to plan. Just
Yeah.
like we plan our kids like our lives. We make a plan. People have birthing plans. They want to have their babies a certain way. They want to raise their kids a certain way. I remember when I had my son, I said, you know what? I'm going to do everything like my mother did, except for a couple things that I wish she would have did for me that she didn't do. Not because she didn't know how, she just didn't have the time. So I said, when my son get older, I'm gonna go on school trips. I'm going to tuck him in at night. we're gonna have dinner at the table, things like that. But it didn't always go according to plan, and life gets in the way. And sometimes you gotta take a second job to pay bills, so you can't always tuck them in at night. But it doesn't make your parenting or your journey any less. So let's go into Genesis 11. When we come across the people migrating from the east, and they all spoke the same language, and they planned to build themselves a city and a tower with its top in the sky. Why do you think they wanted their top in the sky?
Trying to reach up to God or the heavens?
Well, they wanted it to touch heaven. I don't think it was because they wanted to reach God in the heavens, but
maybe like their symbol as to like we made it. I don't know. Like maybe it was something that was going to be symbolic to them.
Could be. Any other suggestions? Okay, so when I did the study about it, they said they built it this high, so if God sent another flood, they wouldn't die. They thought they were smarter than God. God promised them that he would not send another flood, but instead of believing him, they decided to trust themselves and build a tower they felt would protect them. What was the significance of the items that they used to build the tower?
They
used bricks and mortar. So if we go back to Genesis 6:14, it says, make yourself an ark of gopher wood. Make rooms in the ark and cover it with pitch inside and out. So some verses say that the people used the same things that Noah used to build the ark, to waterproof this tower, because they were trying to make sure that if another flood came, they would be protected. So why do you think God came down to see what man was doing? If we have to go back and see why he came down. So it says, the Lord came down to look over the city and the tower that the humans were building. The Lord said, if they had begun to do this as one people, all having the same language, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. So if you just hear that one verse, why do you think he had to come and really see with his own eyes what they were doing? So I put, when I did my search, he couldn't believe that, again, they were not being obedient. He said in the previous chapter, in Genesis 10, he said, go around the earth, spread out and populate, not stay in that one place together. So he wanted the people to spread out. When I was reading this particular chapter, when I was thinking about the title for the lesson, I thought about me and my family just came back from Disney. So we were at the Epcot Center. And in that particular center, it was so many different countries with so many different languages and so many different foods. So when I was reading this chapter and got to that particular question, I thought about if the people stayed together in the one area, will we have ever had those different experiences? Will we ever have the different languages? Will we have learned the different cultures? Will we have the different type of food? God didn't want us to all stay in that same area and be together. He wanted us to go forth and multiply and populate the earth. So My next question would be, why do you think he decided to confuse their language?
So they wouldn't continue to try to like unify and be disobedient to him and try to stay in one place.
Yeah, absolutely. So I said their plan fell apart because they thought they had one up on God. But God threw a monkey wrench in their plans because he knew that man hadn't gotten any better since the flood. Man started feeling like they were better off, which might be, but their character wasn't better. You know how some people get to a point where they feel like they've arrived. They may have everything, all the material things, all the money, but their character suck. So that's where he was feeling like man had arrived, but they were no better. So God had to start over again with a man who would do God's will, even if he does not do his will perfectly. So I said, I feel like man back then was just like man today. They were being hard-headed. And my grandmother used to say, a hard head makes a hard bottom. Sometimes you have to learn the hard way. So out of the whole Genesis 11, what verse stood out to you guys? So we can discuss.
The ones that we just went over were the ones that stuck out to me. I highlighted 6 and 7.
You highlighted 6 and 7?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's go down there and confuse their language. Anybody else? Any other verse before we move on to chapter 12? Chapter 12 is the real good chapter. You know, the Bible about to get real good, y'all. Is there any other chapter in 11 before we move on to 12? So I liked verse number. Oh, go ahead, Shantanese.
I'm sorry.
Mm-mm.
So I'm guessing like the next chapter, well, probably not, because my only other thing was why didn't he? Why was it Terah? Was it Terah not able to bear it? No, was Sarai not able to?
Sarai. Yeah. So that's
like
what,
that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because that was about to be my next verse, number 20. Sarai was unable to conceive. She did not have a child. So we're gonna touch on that in verse 12. I mean chapter 12. Anybody else feel like anything in here? Go ahead, Ashley.
How many verses was in this chapter?
In my Bible with 32.
Okay, all right.
How many you have?
Yeah, that's right, 32.
Okay. And I liked how when it went down to family, like Miss Maria said earlier, how we realized that the people started having children younger, and they didn't live as long. And I liked what Ashley said too about it never said and then they died. It was, which we all know they did, but it would always say he lived this long, he had this, and then he died. But isn't it also funny too that even in this chapter, they don't really mention the women children. They only mention the men. The only woman name we hear of is Sarai. But let's go on to chapter 12. All right, so everybody, let's go to chapter 12. And I'm gonna start. The Lord said to Abram, go from your land, your relatives, and your father's house to the land that I will show you. I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you. I will curse anyone who treats you with contempt, and all the peoples on earth will be blessed through you. So Abram went as the Lord had told him, and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he left Haran. He took his wife Sarai, his nephew Lot, all the possessions they had accumulated, and the people they had acquired in Haran, and they set out for the land of Canaan. When they came to the land of Canaan, Abram passed through the land to the site of Shechem at the oak of Morah. At the time, the Canaanites were in the land. The Lord appeared to Abram and said, to your offspring, I will give this land. So he built an altar there to the Lord who had appeared to him. From there, he moved on to the hill country east of Bethel and pitched his tent, with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. He built an altar to the Lord there, and he called on the name of the Lord. Then Abram journeyed by stages to the Negev. There was a famine in the land, so Abram went down to Egypt to stay there for a while because the famine in the land was severe. When he was about to enter Egypt, he said to his wife Sarai, look, I know what a beautiful woman you are. When the Egyptians see you, they will say, this is his wife. They will kill me, but let you live. Please say you're my sister, so it will go well for me because of you. And my life will be spared on your account. When Abram entered Egypt, the Egyptians saw that the woman was very beautiful. Pharaoh's officials saw her and praised her to Pharaoh. So the woman was taken to Pharaoh's household. He treated Abram well because of her. And Abram acquired flocks and herds, male and female donkeys, male and female slaves, and camels. But the Lord struck Pharaoh and his household with severe plagues because of Abram's wife Sarai. So Pharaoh sent for Abram and said, what have you done to me? Why didn't you tell me she was your wife? Why did you say she's my sister? So that I took her as my wife. Now here is your wife. Take her and go. Then Pharaoh gave his men orders about him, and they sent him away with his wife and all he had. Okay, so what verse in Genesis 12 stuck out to everybody before I start?
I'm
said
just
all of them.
All of them, Ashley. I know that's
Yeah.
right. This is a good one.
4 of them.
Okay.
Abe-
So before we start, let me just ask you this, because this will help us. What are the first 3 promises of God to Abram?
I will
that
make you I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you. I will make your name great and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse.
Yeah.
And all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. So he didn't even have to do all that.
Yeah. And they call this, if y'all want to write this down, all of these blessings together, they call these the Abrahamic covenant. If you want to write that down. Though, all that first part, they call that the Abrahamic covenant. So if you had to look back through the verse, what was the first thing that Abram did wrong?
He told his wife to say that he was his sister.
Before that, Miss Maria, before then, go
Before,
all the way
okay.
back. Go
didn't
all
keep
the way
moving.
back.
Wasn't he supposed to keep moving? Like he stayed in Egypt?
God, keep going before then. That's something. He did that wrong. We're going to get to that, but it's before then. Keep on going all the way back to the beginning.
So yeah, I was about to say.
He was supposed to leave his people in his household.
There you go. He was supposed to go alone. He said right here, he said, the Lord said to Abram, go from your land, your relatives, and your father's house to the land that I will show you. But he started taking people with him. He said, well, I'm going to take my nephew Lot. I'm going to take my wife. He told him go by his seat and go alone. So it says, so my next question was, what was the second thing that Abram did wrong? Chantanese, I think you said it.
He made like he stayed in Egypt. He didn't keep moving.
He didn't keep moving. He stopped in Haran and not where God promised him. He stopped there. God said, I'm going to show you where you're supposed to be. But he stopped at a place before God showed him that's where he was supposed to be. So that was the second thing that he did wrong. And then then one of the things that they said, sometimes the names in the Bible brings us some type of significance. So for example, Terah means delay and Haran means barren. So when Abram was in partial obedience, then delay and barrenness marked his life. When we knowingly disobey God, we often delay the outworking of his plan in our lives, as we also experience some form of barrenness. Do anybody agree? Like when you feel like you're in a barren place, and maybe it could be because we are in partial and we just being in partial obedience. Like he might not say go down that street to the end, and we might say, okay, well, we're not gonna go all the way to the end, but we're gonna just go to the middle part of the street. So we feel like, well, we still not going all the way to the end. We're just going to the middle. So another verse that sticks out to anybody? Ashley, you said all the verses stuck out to you. What else stuck out to you, Shantanice?
So in 10.
Now there was a famine in the land, and Abram went down to Egypt to live there for a while, because the famine was severe.
Mm-hmm.
As he was about to enter Egypt, he said to his wife Sarah, I know what a beautiful woman you are. When the Egyptians see you, they will say, this is his wife. Then they will kill me, but will let you live.
Mm-hmm.
So you would say you are my sister. I think right then and there, he knew he was wrong. He knew that he was not going to be able to get the things that God promised him. Like he wasn't going to get the things that were in the covenant, because he already had traveled with people when he wasn't supposed to. And then on top of that, he's kind of stayed in one area when he wasn't supposed to. So that's why he became deceitful. It was like, look, we're going to lie so I can kind of get in here, get in good, and get all the things that I want. Because technically he didn't have to do all that if he would have just left alone. Like God said. So I think he knew exactly that he was in the wrong, and that's why he became deceitful.
Okay. I like that. I like your view on that. I also, did you ever notice he didn't even ask her if she wanted to lie?
Oh yeah, he didn't care.
He didn't care. Did anybody else pick up on that? He was like, and I guess because he's the leader of the family. She just gonna do what he say. But it's so crazy how women back then didn't have a voice, and how today they try to silence our voice. So he was like, I know you're beautiful, and so because you're beautiful, they're gonna want you, and so I need you to lie for me. Because this not even about, he didn't even think about what would happen to her. All he was thinking about what would happen to me. This will keep me safe. This gonna keep me alive. But he didn't think about what would happen to her. Did anybody else see something?
I see that he just didn't trust God at all.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to do things his own way.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to all he was worried about was what he could get by lying. What he could accumulate, because he was so busy worried about the wealth. He got all these cattle and animals, and even though he lied about it, and he told, like the way my Bible explains it, it explains it as him telling a half truth, and a half truth is still a lie.
Yeah.
So it was saying that that's why I backfired. So even my Bible kind of like flips it and was like, it relates to today. Like even when we lie, even with the best intentions, it still usually backfire. And then it even talks about being lying as a parent, and how those lies can affect your children. I guess what are they trying to get to when they talk about Abram and And when I don't think we got there yet. Lot and Abram, we didn't get there yet, but my Bible goes into that about how it affected the children.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, think about it. He said in this thing, let's go back. He said, I will bless you. I will make your name great. He said, I will bless those who bless you. I will curse anyone who treats you with contempt, and all the peoples on earth will be blessed through you. So why would he not think that if God's saying, I'm going to hold them accountable if they do something wrong to you? Like you said, Ashley, he just didn't believe them because he told them this. He said, I'm going to bless those who bless you, but I'm going to curse those who cursed you. So do we see the curse? Do we see the truth of what he said in that? I will curse anyone who treats you with contempt. Do we see that in here? That God kept his promise?
Yeah, because the Pharaoh was cursed or was having issues.
Yeah. Pharaoh was cursed because he took his wife. And God wasn't going to let that happen. So he said, okay, I'm striking Pharaoh and his household with this severe plague. So that had to open Abram's eyes to say, well, Dad, maybe I didn't have to lie because he was taking care of me all along. Because if he wasn't, then Pharaoh would have had my wife. So I talked about, can you imagine starting over at 75, picking up everything that you know and leaving your home to move to a whole new location? And then it says, you gotta leave your relatives that he left behind. You leave your home, your grocery stores, your Starbucks, your local Starbucks. What else I like? My Chipotle, my favorite Chipotle. I gotta leave all of this at 75. I'm at a routine because at 75 you're in a real good routine. And to start all over. You got a question, Ashley?
So I was thinking, right, when you started talking, it made me think about what Abram was leaving behind. We don't, the people that he left behind or whatever he left behind, we don't know what effect that had on him.
Yeah.
Or it could have been a negative effect. It could have been that he was leaving something bad behind. So God was probably trying to get him to a better place. And he probably didn't even realize it at that point. And he's still trying to hold on to the people that he was leaving. And they probably weren't no good for him to begin with, because he wasn't supposed to take anybody with him. He was supposed to go on his own. So it never really talked about the situation that he was in before he left and why God wanted him to leave in the first place.
Absolutely.
And I don't know, I was just thinking that.
You muted yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you now.
It just had me thinking, because a lot of times you should leave a situation and you still holding on to it. And even though it's not good for you, and you still holding on to it.
But you hoping it'll change. And God will give you the signs, and he'll tell you, I need you to leave from this land. I need you to leave from this place. I need you to leave from this job. I need you to leave from this house. I need you to leave from these people. But we still want to stay because we're comfortable. It's comfortable and it's familiar. And it's hard for us to leave what we know and what we love, even if what we love don't love us back. So my next question is, what is the fourth promise that God gave Abram? It's really more than a fourth one, but the fourth one that I wrote down. So if you start thinking about when we start coming down to the next verses.
I feel like he was going to give him kids.
He was going to give him kids.
Yeah, I feel like he was going to was going to grant Sarai a child, because he said something about offspring.
There you go. He said in verse 7, the Lord appeared to him and said, to your offspring, I will give this land, right? So before he even had any children, he knew you gotta have some kind of offspring for me to get his land to. So that's why he built that altar there, and the Lord appeared to him. So even though back to when we were in chapter 11, verse 30, at that time, she was unable to conceive. She did not have a child. But now here in 12, he's telling him, but I'm going to leave this land to your offspring. So do you think, because we'll know going on in the chapters what happens with them, but do you think at this point, he told her, girl, God said he going to give our kids this land? Or do you think he kept it to himself?
I think he ain't believe him. He probably went in one ear and out the other.
I agree. Anybody else think that maybe, because
is it a possibility that because he made that promise to him and he knew his wife was incapable of having kids, why he came up with the plan for her to say that she was his sister so that he could possibly get another wife to have these offspring?
Well, I don't think that, but I think that his faith was being tested and he really just didn't trust that what God said would be. Because why, if she's been trying, and we don't know how long she had been trying up here at the top, but if she had been trying, how would she know that really she can't handle kids? Because how many years had gone on and she's saying, I can't handle kids. But we know that in 11 she didn't, but in 12 she did. But I felt like he was messing up the plan, right? Because if you gave your wife to Pharaoh, and if God didn't do anything to stop it, what if she got pregnant by him?
That's
messing up the plan or devising his own. Because how many times does that happen?
Yeah.
Like, how is it that you're being led accordingly? You're supposed to be doing what you're supposed to be doing, but you come up with your own plan and you just detour. And that whole new plan was to say that she was his sister.
Mm-hmm. So that he wouldn't, because he felt like she was so beautiful and that they would kill me. So when I was doing my research, it did say that people would kill for people's wives if they were really pretty. I mean, but let's think about it today. Real pretty women, no, it's nothing based on their character. It's all based on what they look like. They ain't even they don't say nothing about she could cook. They don't say nothing about how she keep a house. They was just like, oh, she beautiful, and I want her.
Privilege.
Yeah. Okay, so then I want to say, what was the failure of Abram?
Not trusting God.
He didn't trust God. Anything else?
Being a liar.
He was a liar. Absolutely. Because I wrote, Abram started losing his faith when the famine came. He moved without consulting or hearing from God. Because see, right here where it say there was a famine in the land, so Abram went down to Egypt to stay there for a while because the famine in the land was severe. But nowhere here did it tell him that God told him to leave. Nowhere in there did that say God told him to leave Egypt. He left there on his own because the famine came and he didn't trust that God would provide for him. And then how many times do we do that? Do we leave a situation because we feel like we're not being provided for, or things aren't going according to our plan? So we like, okay, well, this ain't working out. I'm going to leave. So he left. So I put, he moved up without consulting or hearing from God. He didn't believe that God would meet his needs. He did what most of us does in our time of trouble. We start trusting in man and not believing in God's promise. Because that'll be the first thing we do, be like, well, my man said, we're going to move to this house because the rent cheaper this year, right? We left our nice little place where our kids was comfortable to go to another place because for the 1 year, our rent was cheaper. And because our man said we was going to do that. And then the next year, our rent went up even more than what the rent was at the first place we was living. Because we didn't believe the promise or didn't want to stay where God had settled us. So I said, what did he tell Sarah to do? Which we said we told her to lie and say she was his sister and not his wife. What are the repercussions of the lie? If we had to look at her telling the people, the Egyptians, that she was his sister and not his wife, what are all the repercussions that come from this?
Didn't the Pharaoh get sick or something?
Yeah, the plague come, but yeah, the plague hit him in his house. Well, we gonna say COVID
he
hit
made
him.
them leave. He put them out.
He put him out. But what else? With the lie, and now she becomes vulnerable, right? She doesn't have covering. You know, when you back in biblical times, when you have a husband, you have a covering, so you're protected. So when now it's like she a free for all, right? So he puts her purity in jeopardy, because even before the Egyptians said that she was beautiful, he stopped trusting in God, and he is in fear of danger that he hasn't even coming upon yet. So he turns to his plan. He turned his plans to come up with a plan of protection. Think about it. He made that up in his head. If they're going to see you, they're going to say you beautiful, and they're going to kill me. They ain't show him none of that. Nobody showed him that they wanted his wife. At this very moment, when he made up this plan for her to say that she was his sister and not his wife, nobody had given him any type of anything to let him think that this was what he had made up in his mind was going to happen. Is there any other verse before we move on?
Well, I said all of them, but the verse that's really sticking out to me is like 15 and 16.
15, 16. Okay. You gonna read it?
It says when the palace officials saw her, well, according to my version, when the palace officials saw her, they sang her praises to Pharaoh, their king, and Sarai was taken into his palace. Then Pharaoh gave Abram many gifts because of her: sheep, goats, cattle, male and female donkeys, male and female servants, and camels. That stands out to me because it's almost like he manipulated her into doing what he wanted her to do so he could get what he wanted.
Absolutely. It's like he sold his wife.
Exactly, just so he could get something out the deal.
Yeah.
You say he was a pimp, Shantanese.
The first pimp. He pimped his wife off.
He did. I mean, think about it. He gave her, it was like he knew he was going to get a dowry for her. He might not have knew what the dowry was, but he knew he was going to get something, because if he said she was his sister, then in their mind, they're her relative. And if I want to take her as my wife, I owe something. So, because there's no mention of no father for her. So I'm going to give what I would give her father to her brother. So yeah, he pimped her out. And the sad part is, he didn't even ask, do you want to do this for me?
But most men don't ask. They take advantage. It's like he took advantage of her.
Of her love that she had for him. And he probably knew that she would do just about anything for him. Okay, so I said, as he thought the Egyptians, they did find her attractive, but what he didn't plan on was that the Pharaoh would want his wife. And he would not take no for an answer. So again, his plan was not working out how he wanted. He might be saved, but now another man wanted his wife. He was getting blessed with cattle and servants, but he couldn't be happy because his wife was not there to enjoy it with him anymore. So he had to live with the thought that another man wanted his wife to be his wife as well. What y'all think about that?
So why did he send Why did the Lord send the plague to Pharaoh? And why didn't he like do something to Abram? Because Abram was the one that told the lie. Like, how did
He told,
I'm not gonna say I read ahead a little bit. So I'm not gonna say that
yeah.
he got off
Mhm.
scot-free. But why in this moment did he punish Pharaoh and not punish Abram?
Because he said in verse 3, I will curse anyone who treats you
Okay,
with
okay.
contempt. So even though Abram set this whole plan in motion, God made this promise to him that I will curse anybody who basically harmed you. And that included his wife. Because of Sarah, because it said right here, because of Sarah, he sent the plague.
My thing is, I would love to have heard or been able to like for parts of the Bible to tell from the woman's perspective, because my thing is no, I couldn't imagine how she felt.
Yeah.
She probably felt so dirty. She probably felt so manipulated, so nasty, and just helpless.
Yeah.
So I feel like at the end of the day, if she lived through this, she probably was a whole nother person after this experience. She probably was raunchy and all types of stuff.
But I mean, just think about like the girls that get taken and sold into sex slaves and
yeah,
sex trafficking. It's kind of similar. They don't have no choice. Nobody asked them what they wanted to do. They just took. And the same thing he did. He just took. He took opportunities. He took her voice. He took the ability to try for her to even have faith in God. Because if God said, I'm going to bless you and I'm going to bless those who bless you. Because see, the sad part is, can you imagine what God would have did for Pharaoh if he just would have gave him them things without taking his wife? Because it would have looked like a blessing to Pharaoh. So God would have had to keep his promise and bless him because he would have been a blessing to Abram. But no, Abram had to do his own plan and say, you say you my sister. So that caused God to curse him and send that plague. And so my next question would be, what did the Lord do to Pharaoh and his house? Which we know he sent a great plague to Pharaoh and his house. So Pharaoh sent for Abram and asked him, why did you lie? And did y'all notice he never answered?
Because he tried to rationalize lying. Like his reason for lying was because he thought that they was going to kill him because she was so pretty. But then it really makes me wonder, like, was that really your reason for lying, or did you know what she was doing the whole time?
But see, then you got to ask yourself, then you a punk for real. Because you ain't even give him no response. You ain't even tell him, well, I only did it because I thought you was going to kill me. He said nothing. You can read it. He didn't get no
But I mean,
answer.
he felt no remorse. He felt no guilt. He felt
probably
nothing.
just stood there. Maybe he put his head down. Maybe he didn't. Because we don't see that where it said he stood in a shame. It just said, he say nothing. He said, man, take your wife and go. But Pharaoh was still good because he said, and take everything with you. And he left without harm. Think about it. Because, and later on when we get to that Pharaoh, he don't want you to just leave when we get to the next Pharaoh. But this Pharaoh said, man, just take your wife and go. And then still let him keep everything that he had. So I feel like in that moment, God probably would, after the sickness, he probably did bless him because he healed him and maybe gave him some type of blessing because he did let him leave with the stuff. And so God had to come in and rectify the plan. Same thing like he do with our lives. We go in, we jack things up and we say, God, if you ever get us out of this again, I promise you I ain't going to do it again. And of course we do. And he get us out of it again. We get that plan in motion and we sit there and we say, whew, it ain't work out according to plan. Woo, thank you, Jesus. He didn't save me again. But we go out and we still do things again because God had said this land is going to be to your descendants. And we know that Jesus is coming from Abram's lineage.
Well, I got a question.
Mm-hmm.
When Abraham first left, he took his wife and his nephew Lot.
Mm-hmm.
Where's Lot?
what did he have to say in all of this? And
Well,
this,
we're gonna meet Lot a little bit later.
I know
But
it be probably gonna come up on him, but I'm just saying, like, did the Pharaoh put him out possibly too? Because it just say
oh
the
yeah, he
Pharaoh
gonna leave too.
put his wife out.
Yeah, people
Oh,
all out. But that's the thing. Lot probably was sitting there because I mean, he probably was looking at him like, man, you gonna really do this?
mm-hmm.
What do you like?
But you know, guys, they don't think like us. They might be like, all right, yo, I mean, because if he kill you, he might kill me too. So, you know, yeah, yo, go ahead and do that.
Wait a minute. Lot is his nephew, right?
Mhm.
Abram
Yeah.
nephew. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So I said Abram's plan did not work out because his wife would have been taken. Thank God his plan didn't work out because his wife would have been taken by Pharaoh. And when she would have had to be his wife, whether she wanted to be his wife or not. And I say it's funny that nobody even asked her if she wanted to marry Pharaoh. But she was willing to lie to save her husband. How many times, ladies, have we been put in a position to lie to save a man? My God. What promise would not have been fulfilled if his plan would have worked? So out of all of the promises that we discussed, what promise would not have been fulfilled if his plan would have worked? And it's the last
I think
question.
all of them.
Well, all of them, but definitely, it said your descendants will inherit the land. And since Jesus is the direct descendant of Abram and Sarah, that he would not have been able to be brought
They-
to fruition.
Pharaoh.
Mhm.
What if the Pharaoh would have had to get her? Would have been the father instead of him? Something like that.
Yeah, but then it wouldn't have been right because when we get to Sarah and Abram, when we get to them in the next chapters, we'll see why this was really important. So you know, always gotta have our make it to today's time. So let's make it to today's time, and that way we can get right in.
Thing that I just don't have.
Well, I guess there's limits to what money can buy.
Not many.
Well, some things aren't for sale.
Such as?
But you can't buy people.
That's naive, Diana. I buy people every day.
Oh, well, in business maybe, but not when real emotions are involved.
So what are you saying? You can't buy love? That's a bit of a cliche, don't you think?
It's absolutely true.
Is it? What do you think?
I agree with Diana.
You do? Well, let's test the cliche. Suppose I were to offer you $1 million for one night with your wife.
I'd assume you're kidding.
Let's pretend I'm not. What would you say?
He'd tell you to go to hell.
I didn't hear him.
I tell you to go to hell.
That's a reflex answer because you view it as hypothetical. But let's say that there were real money behind it. I'm not kidding. $1 million. Now, the night would come and go, but the money could last a lifetime. Think of it. $1 million. A lifetime of security for one night. And don't answer right away, but consider it. Seriously.
What y'all
I
think?
gotta watch that.
That's a decent proposal in case anybody never had seen that movie before. So what do you what that's it almost. He got all that stuff. You see how easily the man, because really, if she wasn't saying nothing, He wasn't saying nothing, but we all know what happens if you watch the movie, how the effect of the one night happens. But you never seen it, Shantanice?
But
That's
I'm gonna watch.
Indecent Proposal. So anybody on here who've never seen it before, that's the Indecent Proposal. So you know, please go back and watch it so that you can really watch the whole movie and see what the effect of having this indecent proposal will do to a relationship. And that's our homework for assignment for tonight. I want us to make our own plan for indecent proposal, if you would say, and then just a plan of what we want to see us do in the next couple of years. And hopefully we'll our plan that we make, and we need to pray over it to make sure it's the same plan that the Lord has for us. Because what I want to leave y'all with is this, is for the Lord knows the plans he has for you. He plans to prosper you and not to harm you. He plans to give you a hope and a future. And that's in Jeremiah 29:11. So I want y'all to write out y'all plans and pray over it and say, Lord, is my plan in the same way as the plan that you had for my life? And that's our homework. So before we leave, I just want to know, what did we learn tonight?
I learned that if you live for wealth and comfort, it can become between you and your family.
Yeah. I like that, Ashley. We'll write that down so when I send out the recap, we have it. What else did we learn? Wealth can come between you and your family.
And it can also sometimes people put it before being obedient to God too.
Come between you, your family, and God. You, your family, and God. Anything else anybody learned?
I just have a quick question. Are we left to assume that Sarah told the Pharaoh, or that God came to the Pharaoh?
So I guess because of that plague hitting him, I guess somehow or another Pharaoh figured out that they was lying, because before they came there, he wasn't sick. Think about it. So you like, okay, before I let these, like if something go missing in your house, right? Before I let these people come in my house, my stuff was here. So I'm only going to assume that they the thief. So before I let these people.
But you automatically assume, I'm sorry, I just said it, but you automatically assume that it's a marriage based off of the plague?
It had to be something serious for him to give them that. And I guess the only thing is it could have been the little side eyes they were giving each other. It could have been something. He might have caught something. He might have seen something. He probably knew. We just somehow or another, Pharaoh knew. The Lord must have told him. Somebody told him that was his wife.
Okay.
So is that what you want? You want me to write that down, Courtney? Is what we learned, that somehow or another he found out that that was his wife? So I can send it in a recap.
You can. It was just playing on my mind. Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else? They're right in the wife. Anybody else learn anything? Well, I'm gonna tell y'all what I learned, and that's why I'm enjoying that we're reading it in order. So I'm glad that we're doing that. I did not know that Lot was Abram's nephew. And Lot is going to be important because we're going to come across Lot again later on in the Bible. So I didn't know that Lot was Abram's nephew. So I learned that. Did anybody else learn anything?
I learned everything.
What you learned, Jocelyn?
Everything.
Everything. Okay, I like it.
This is all new to me. I never really picked up a Bible, so this is all new to me. So yes,
I know that's, hey, we all in this together. I'm glad. Anybody else? Okay. Well, this ends this week Bible study. Next week, we did 11, 13 and 14 next week, and then I'll send out. It's the same link. This same link that we have tonight will work for next week's Bible study. You know, I always encourage you, if you really enjoy Bible study, please invite others so they can come and they can learn, and they can join, and they can participate, and they can give us their opinion as well. And that's about it. Have a good night, everybody.
Have a good night, ladies.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.